Hello, parents and caregivers. This is a file that is being created as a complement to the Dynamic Parenting Challenge workbook. So it's an audio guide that will go through it with you just in case you had any questions that came up as you go through it. So let's go to the handbook. We're going to go through it together, and you can always pause this audio once you get to a page and continue, or you can listen to it straight through and then go through the workbook, whichever style works best for you. So we're starting at the beginning. Just want to go over the disclaimer that this workbook is a tool for personal reflection and improvement. It does not replace professional advice. If you have concerns about your child's well-being, please consult a qualified professional. All rights of this book are being reserved. This is only for your personal use, not to be reproduced or sold in any manner. Again, welcome to the challenge. And this exercise will be hard for some parents to go through. So if you're going through it and you hit a spot where your system, your mind, everything is kind of pushing back, then you can just pause. You don't have to force yourself to go through it all at one time. You can just pause, kind of sit with yourself and say, why does this question, what is it bringing up within me that is bothering me so much, right? So you want to be able to use this as a tool to help you be able to be more self-aware, because your goal is to kind of level up. And we just always are always leveling up. To level up doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means that, just like if we're working out and we reach our workout goal, we're not just going to stop working out. We are going to maintain. We're always going to develop and get better cuts and development and speed and strength as we do it more consistently. That's all this is kind of designed to help you kind of see some points that you may want to focus on. So you just want to keep focused on the goal in mind as you go forward. So let's go to step 1. Reflect on your current communication with your child. Take a moment to assess your current communication style with your adolescent. What seems to be working well, and where do you face challenges? Assessing your current communication style involves introspection and observation. That's all you're here to do, is to look within yourself, to observe. Do not criticize, do not, beat up on yourself for anything that may come up. This is just an observation. So I always advise we're removing our emotions. You just want to be in observation mode. And here's some steps that can help you as you go through. And you can write notes. You can print this and write your notes here, or you just can have your own journal and you can jot down your notes in the journal. So for self-reflection, set aside some quiet time to reflect on recent interactions with your adolescent. Consider the tone, language, and overall atmosphere during the conversation. So you want to be able to sit quietly, because if we're in the midst and there are distractions and noises around, we're going to tend to not give the exercise our undivided attention, because your brain cannot focus well on two things at the same time. So just taking a few minutes out to just sit, close your eyes if possible, replay as you would replay a movie in your mind, and observe third person, step by step, both sides of the interaction, and just observe it. Write down anything that you see that is noteworthy, anything within yourself or anything within your child. You want to observe, remembering that how we communicate is 93% body language. It's nonverbal. So you don't want to just focus on the words that were exchanged. You want to look at the body language, the inflections in the voice, the look in the eye, all of those types of things. You want to note those things also. Journaling. Keep a communication journal for a few days. Note key points from conversations and interactions that you have going forward with your child. You want to note the responses. Look for any patterns, reoccurring themes. Anything like every time I say something to my child, they get angry. I get the side eye. Every time the child comes to me, I get frustrated and I'm stressed, or I find that I get a little sharp in my tone. Remember, we're observing, we're not judging. So you just want to do this exercise for a few days, that you're observing every interaction. You're going to sit and replay it. You're going to take notes as quickly as possible after the interaction, because a lot of times we may forget something. So as soon as you can after the interaction, you just want to jot something down. Even if you don't have your journal with you, grab a sticky, grab a sheet of paper, write it down, and you can transfer it into your journal later on. Feedback. Seek feedback from your adolescent, if appropriate. So as is appropriate will depend on a few different variables, their age, the situation. There can be some nuances there. So this isn't a one-stop fits all. Not every single time we have a conversation, we're going to ask for it. In your emotional intelligence, as you're developing your abilities, you're going to find that you'll kind of know when that fits instinctively. You want to ask them about their perception. You want to glean that. So sometimes we don't necessarily, it's not right to have the verbal conversation, but you're observing how they're communicating physically, emotionally. There are other ways of reading and getting feedback from them that isn't just relying on a verbal conversation. So you can always get feedback from them, just how they're responding, how they're engaging or not engaging, right? You want to note all of those things and see, where do you feel that things can be improved? Is it a communication style difference? Is it that we don't communicate in a way that they resonates with them? Are you aware of their love language? Are you communicating in a way that they can receive it? Are they communicating with you in a way that you can receive it? How can things be adjusted so that things align? What can be improved? You'll find as you sit quietly, things will just start coming to mind. They'll come to the surface as you sit in that quiet space, and ensure that you're in the right mindset, that we're not in judgment mode, not judging yourself and not judging them. Remember, I can't say enough, we're just in observation. You're an observer. Sometimes you want to record the conversation, because if you find that as you're communicating, they say, but you didn't say that, that's not what you said, or you say, well, that's not what you said, or that's not what I understood, and there's a difference and friction in exactly how things were expressed, or what was promised, what was said, what was the conclusion, then you can simply say, and I love doing this, with permission and in the right spirit. So it's not kind of from the spirit, well, we never agree on anything, so we're recording this, and it's a negative twist. It's like, you know what? I'm always getting what you say wrong. Or I just want to make sure I get it right this time. That you can hold me accountable, because we're going to record this. And then that takes the threat, that takes the judgment out of it. And it makes them much more comfortable having the conversation. So everything's about kind of how we approach it. And that can help you replay it later, analyze tones, expressions, and it'll help you be more effective in how you kind of engage and communicate. Very valuable tool. And we said this already, the nonverbal cues. Pay attention to those cues during the conversations. Do you feel uncomfortable? Do you notice discomfort in them? Are you avoiding or are they avoiding? Situations, topics, changing the topic. You want to be able to look at those situations, because that's a hot spot. That's a pain point that you want to make sure that you don't bypass. You want to make sure that you do some work in that space. So on that page, you're going to write down your thoughts, either on the page if you've printed the workbook, or in your journal. So when you're ready, move on to step number 2. Step number 2, exploring your communication style. Understanding your current communication style is crucial for building a more effective connection with your adolescent. Delve deeper into how you communicate. And this is one, if you saw the report that was put out by the U.S. Surgeon General, he says that the connection is the key centerpiece of the problem, the lack of connection. So here you're looking to build a more effective connection with your child. This is going to have a transforming impact in their lives, in your relationship, in the household. It's going to be amazing. Discover your listening style. Take note of how you listen during the conversations. Are you actively engaged, or do you find your mind wandering? How often do you give your undivided attention versus talking to them while you're on your phone, checking a message, you're cooking, you're gardening, you're doing something while they're trying to have a conversation with you? You want to take note of that. Because if they're not getting your undivided attention, if it is your style that you're multitasking because you're really busy, kind of get through two things at once to maximize our time, your child is going to feel undervalued. You want to make sure that, imagine that you're going through something and you go to someone that you're expecting to help you, but they'll only talk to you while they're checking their messages or they're gardening or they're doing other things. How would that make you feel? So you want to be able to give that consideration to your child. There is a quote that I just read today that I think is amazing. It fits right here. Without devoting attention, we don't experience care, and we can't extend care. In fact, you may say that paying attention to another person is our highest form of love. Paying attention to your adolescent can be your highest form of love. So you want to look at making sure that you're giving them your undivided attention. And let's say at the moment they come to you and you're in the middle of cooking dinner or doing something that you cannot stop at that moment. You can say to them, "Can we talk while I'm cooking?" And maybe they don't mind. Or you can say, "Can I finish cooking because I want to give you my undivided attention, but this is going to burn," or, "I can't stop it halfway. It's going to ruin the meal." Or, let me finish this phone call. Let me send off this email, kind of engage them in that. So they're going to know that you value them and that they have a choice. Does wonders for that connection. Uncover unconscious biases. Reflect on any preconceived notions or biases that might influence your communication. Do you believe that your adolescent should do as you say without challenging you? Or do you share, seek, and value your adolescent's input, especially as they get older? But they don't have to be high teens or adolescents for you to kind of value their input. The younger that they are, and remember, input doesn't mean they control. Input doesn't mean that you shift to what they want. Input just means that you hear them. Because you're hearing them doesn't mean you have to agree with them, and it doesn't mean you have to do what they want if you see in your wisdom that that's not in their best interest. But hearing them and valuing them, or even coming to a compromise with them, is what is going to help to develop them. If they are never heard until high adolescence, young adulthood, how will they have a voice? How will they know how to use their voice? How will they develop confidence? It's through the trial and error and the back and forth of conversations, and as they grow and feeling safe in that space, that they develop that confidence that parents seek for their children to have, that self-esteem, their self-value. You want them to have a voice as an adult and stand for themselves, then that's an opportunity for you to train that here. Again, remembering just because they want it doesn't mean they get it, but you want to be able to hear what is in their heart and what they have to say. So note if you have some preset biases that I'm the adult, what I say goes. That's kind of how I was raised. What I say goes. You don't have any room for your questions. Don't need your opinion. If I want your opinion, I'll ask for it. You want to make sure that that's not the kind of situation that your child comes up in, because they're going to grow up very insecure, feeling very inferior. And is that what you want? But that's what's going to be developed and groomed if they're not, as is age appropriate, gradually and gradually given more voice and more concessions and never going against your values. Hearing them doesn't go against your values. Disagreeing, but not being disagreeable is key. Right? So they won't get what they want all the time, but how do you tell them no is also a great part of whether you're going to have connection while you're saying no, or whether that's going to cause a rift. Same no, but different impact. 3, analyze response mechanisms. Pay attention to how you react under stress or disagreement. Identifying your default response mechanisms helps you foresee potential communication challenges. Work on resetting your norm if desired, if it's needed. So this is what I was mentioning. My family's default was no. And it came to the point that I would stop asking for things because I knew I was going to get the no. And instead of setting myself up to get my feelings hurt, I wouldn't even ask. I wouldn't even try. And that's going to carry over into how your child does life. They're going to feel defeated before they even get out the gate. Is that your desire? So you want to look at what defaults do you have, if any. You may not have them, but if you do. Assess empathy levels. Gauge your ability to empathize with your adolescent's perspective. This is what we're talking about. Hearing them out, understanding, walking a mile in their shoes, understanding from their perspective. Are you quick to offer understanding, or is there room for improvement? Cultivating empathy fosters a supportive environment. 5. Evaluate digital communication. If digital platforms play a role, assess your written communication style. So if you use some type of digital platform to communicate with your child, look at kind of how you're doing that communication. So it's not just the face-to-face conversation. When you send them a text or a message or however you may do that, what's the message that they get from that? Consider your tone, how it may come across in these mediums. 6. Consider cultural nuances. Acknowledge cultural influences on your communication style. Do you parent as you were parented, or are you open to revamping and adapting your approach, recognizing the diversity in communication preferences? So there are many ways to communicate, and as we go from age to age, that changes. So how we used to communicate with our parents, it looks nothing like this today. So we have to adapt and change if we want to maintain connection and relationship. Looking at it and saying, if this isn't a value thing, but more of a cultural thing, and I see that it's having a negative impact on my child, how can I adapt that? You want to be open to looking at that. Remembering the centerpiece is your effective connection with your child. You want to look at what is the result when you communicate with your child. What's the result of that interaction? Is it positive? Is it negative? You want to be able to assess that. And if it needs adjustment, even if it's positive, could it be more positive? If it's negative, then how can I make it more positive? If it's positive, is there anything I can do to adjust it to make it even more, make it better? Remember, we're always leveling up. We're always improving. We're always developing. It's not that we get to a point and we stop. There's always something that we could maybe adjust and tweak and maybe make a little better. So put your notes down on 2, anything that resonates and comes up, anything you want to pay attention to. And when you're done, move on to step 3. Step 3, actionable strategies. Now that you've identified your communication style and potential areas for improvement, it's time to implement actionable strategies to strengthen your connection with your adolescent. Consider some of the following steps. Active listening techniques. Practice active listening by giving your full attention when your adolescent speaks. So a lot of times, especially if we're stressed, especially if you're short on time, especially if what the situation is really getting under your skin, you tend to maybe sometimes jump in, speak over them. They say a thought and you want to make sure that you address that point before they move on to something else, and you'll jump in. You want to, and this goes for any communication with anyone, not just with adolescents. We want to make it a practice to do active listening. So we avoid the urge to jump in while they're sharing. So if you're like me, that sometimes things come to mind while someone's speaking, but I don't want to jump in, I always have a note paper with me if it's an important conversation, and I say, I'm not recording things. I just want to make sure that I don't interrupt you, but I don't want to forget a point that I wanted to make. So I'm just writing down 1 or 2 words that I come back to these points, so they know that it's not that you're transcribing the conversation, and that's a win-win situation. And as you're responding, provide validating responses to show that you understand their perspective, and ask clarifying questions if needed. So always open-ended questions that will get them to share more, and you can reword things in a way and respond in a way that shows that you understand from their perspective. A lot of times we're communicating with the goal, you need to understand what I'm thinking and what I want and how I want it, versus understanding from their perspective. It's not taken away from what you want, but you want to fully understand from their perspective. Remember the goal? Connection. This is the way we're going to be able to get you there. The open-ended questions. Foster meaningful conversations by asking open-ended questions that encourage your adolescent to share. So questions that will not give them the option out. They can just say a yes or a no. You want to ask things in a way that the door's open to go deeper in discussion and pulling out the insights into their thoughts and feelings. Empathy building exercises. Putting yourself in your adolescent's shoes. This is how you can understand things better from their perspective. If it were me, I were in their shoes, switching roles, and they were me, what would I want? What kind of response would I want? Not just yes or no that I get or don't get, but how would I want them to respond to me, even if I don't get what it is that I desire? And this will help you to understand their emotion and experiences better. There is the quote, walk a mile in another man's shoes before you judge him. We apply that to adults, but your children, adults in making. How do they become that spectacular, amazing adult without the grooming, without the training, without the options of experiencing the trial and error? This is the perfect age for that trial and error, for them to forge and become that spectacular adult. But it's not going to be perfect all the time. It's not going to be perfect any of the time. So you want to be able to help them be okay with that. And the more you understand that, the more you can understand their perspective, the greater that connection is going to be and your ability to communicate, even non-verbally. So 4, we mentioned the non-verbal communication. You want to be mindful of your non-verbal cues. So when they speak to you, do you tense up? Do you slam the spoon down? Do you start making noises? Like how do some West Indians kiss the teeth, as they say? How are you communicating non-verbally? You want to be able to just be aware of that. And if it needs to be adjusted, you're adjusting it because you want to level up your parenting. You want to be more proactive and you want to get a more productive response from your child. So all of these little bits are going to make a huge difference. You want to look to establish common ground, identified shared interests. We're looking for this connection and communication. I can't tell you how many times that I've coached families and said, okay, I want you to start doing a digestive walk after dinner. Just a 20-minute, 15-minute, very slow pace walk after your meals. Family goes for a walk. If you have a dog, walk the dog. No devices, just look around, look at the trees, look at the sky, just pay attention. I can't tell you how many families have said the conversations that we have, we are so much more bonded and we're healthier. And now the family is able, in the beginning, it was a struggle to get people there and not on their phones. Now they're looking forward to their walks. This is when we get to share what happened in the day and have conversations about challenges. Find something around which you and your adolescent can kind of bond and share that space and time. And this is where a lot of that connection is going to happen. If we're just sitting at a table looking face to face, trying to have a conversation, it can be very intimidating. But if we're fixing the car, if we're building a model plane, if we're cooking, if we're gardening, if we're doing a puzzle, if we're fill in the blank, you'll find that those conversations flow so much better. So find some common ground and make it something that you regularly and consistently do. Set your communication expectations. Establish your goal for the conversation you're about to have with your child. What is your desired outcome? Discuss and establish communication expectations with your adolescent. So what is it that you would like to have come out of this situation? What is it that I can help you with? How can I help you? What would you like me to do? How would you like me to fill in the blank, right? What is their desire? What is your desire? What are the preferred modes of communication? Face to face, texting, schedule check ins. Ensure a mutually comfortable approach. So maybe your child is really uncomfortable having face to face discussions, but they'll text you. That's a way you can communicate, but you don't want to permit that to be the only way that you communicate. Because if your child is uncomfortable having face to face conversations with you, then that says that there's something wrong. And you want to be able to go underneath and find out why is that happening? And is that going to impact them socially as they go forward? So anything that makes them uncomfortable, they're going to hide behind a screen. How is that going to go with their success in their future? You want to make sure that your child is able, may not prefer it, but is able to be productive and engage in any of these types of situations. And even as you're having a conversation, if it's about something specific, there's a goal that some solution, some resolution will come out of this. You want to make sure that you stay on topic. A lot of times you may have conversations and we go left or right, and we didn't even really finish discussing what we came here together to discuss. So you want to make sure that you set your intention and stay on task and say, oh, wait, we're drifting left. We're going to discuss this. Let's put a pin in that, note it down. We're going to come back to that, but let's first resolve what you need from X, Y, or Z, or address the situation that I need to address. You want to make sure that that's resolved. Acknowledge achievements. Proactively watch for opportunities to acknowledge and celebrate your adolescent. Remember, again, we're looking for the connection. So we're looking for the big and the small things. A lot of times we may only focus on the big things and we miss the small things. Do we celebrate that B? Do we celebrate the C? They could have gotten an F. Do we say, you know what? Okay, we'll take that C. Say it, I kind of say it smiling, we'll take that C. What do we need to do to make that a B minus? What do you think? What do you think was challenging with that for you? How can I help you kind of turn that into a B minus or a B, as opposed to, oh, why didn't you get an A? You're not watching any more video games, more devices. That's not going to help them make the right connection in their brain. But if we are now making sure that we're celebrating the C, the B, they did the bathroom, great job doing the bathroom. Could you just pick up the garbage instead of saying, you didn't do the bathroom? Why is the garbage still there? We said the same thing, right? Basically, but how did we say it? How did we come across? How are we communicating it? So now, first way, great job. Could you just pick up the garbage? Now, what's the probability that they're going to remember the garbage next time, or they're going to go that extra mile? Versus the second way, what did you mean you cleaned the bathroom? You didn't take out the garbage. Now in their mind, nothing I do is good enough. Look how much I did. The only thing missing was the garbage. You didn't acknowledge anything else. So now they're going to be less inclined to try. So we want to look at how we are communicating things with them, right? And acknowledge whatever achievements they make. Conversely, we're not going swinging the pendulum the other way and looking to acknowledge every little thing, because now they're going to have an expectation that everybody needs to applaud every single thing they do. And that's going to set them up to get their feelings hurt. That's going to set them up for an unrealistic expectations on what their future is going to look like. So we want to make sure that we have it in balance. What are your conflict resolution skills? Have you even thought about that? Equip yourself with effective conflict resolution skills. Teach your adolescent how to express their concerns constructively, and you model that behavior. So when you're angry, how do you engage? What is being modeled for them? And that's going to be key on how they're going to model when they're angry. How are they going to do it? This will set the stage for resolving conflicts in a healthy and respectful manner. If parents are yelling, and parents have told me this, that, I go anger for anger and, one for one, but that doesn't train them on how to manage. It doesn't train them that there's another way of expressing that emotion. They're going to say, well, every time I'm mad and I yell, mom gets mad and she yells. So yelling is what we do. Is that how we want them to grow up? So now their boss may yell, and because their brain is programmed, when somebody yells at me, I yell back. Are they going to be yelling at their boss? Because the brain isn't going to make a distinction necessarily. If they're in a stressed state, they're going to come out swinging emotionally and verbally because they're looking to preserve themselves. It's a protection mechanism. So you want to train them that even when you feel stressed and pressed in a corner, even when situations don't go the way that you want, even when somebody may say something in a way that kind of hurts your feelings a little bit, you're still able to control yourself and how you respond to that situation. So we want to look at that, note those things down, and see, what can I do differently? What can you do differently as the parent? What strategy can you implement? So as you go through those points, kind of circle, highlight, put notes in your journal, see what do you want to kind of put on your short list of things that you want to deliberately now research and practice another way that you can now engage your child in that space. And step number 4 is reflection and adjustment. So after you've done that for a while, you want to be able to set a time frame. Okay, I'm going to do this for a week, and then I'm going to regroup and come back and do a check-in. I'm going to see feedback from myself. I'm going to see what improvements have been made, or I'm going to do it for 30 days. You want to set a time frame, but nothing too far out. So I would say anywhere from a week to 4 weeks, and then you loop back around and see, okay, where do I find the most friction? Where do I need to stay focused and continue to address in it as you check in with yourself? And you want to celebrate your wins. I only yelled twice, or my voice didn't go as high, or it wasn't as intense, or I was able to catch myself mid-sentence and pivoted. You want to be able to look at reflecting and just adjusting, remembering that you are an observer. You're not here to criticize yourself. You're not here to be criticized. You're here to observe because you want to be able to train your brain to react differently when things arise. Because your goal is the connection and relationship with your adolescent, that you can have a legacy of a healthy relationship, and then your child will go on to have healthier relationships and will train their children if they have children, and now your family line has a legacy of healthy, bonded, connected individuals. Versus, are we going forward anger to anger, frustration to frustration, yelling for yelling, and that's the legacy that I'm leaving and that I'm seeding it into my family line? You want to be able to choose and be able to adjust accordingly. So this is an investment that you're making in yourself, in your immediate family now, and in your future generations. And even everyone that you and your children will come in contact with are going to be impacted by the positive changes that you are committed to making. So we've pretty much gone through the workbook, and hopefully these highlights have helped you kind of have a better framework as you're answering and going through on your own. And remember, effective communication is a journey, not a destination. So you're not looking to say, well, I have to have the perfect relationship in 6 weeks or less, or in 60 days or any time frame. It is just, I want to have a better relationship. I want to be better at communicating with my child this week than I was last week. And next week, better than you are this week. And it's just progress, no perfection, progress. And you want to be able to celebrate the progress that you're making, even if that progress is just your different mindset right now. That's the biggest part to catapult you to the external that you'll start to see. So it is a journey, not a destination. Embrace the process, stay open to learning, and watch your parent-adolescent relationship just thrive. So thank you again for investing the time to go through this workbook. You've invested in yourself, you've invested in your child, and you've invested in our future.